Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of Teen Talk Live. I'm so glad to be here with you live. I am your host, Ann Dillard, and tonight we have a really interesting topic for you. And this was one of the topics that was requested by a viewer. And so we went ahead and found someone who works in this area to bring you this subject tonight. So tonight we are talking about single moms raising Black boys. And if you know a single mom who has or is raising a Black boy in today's society, I want you to tag them or share this video out so that they can join the conversations with us. Okay, tonight I'm excited to have one of my colleagues here with us, our guest, Tresaca Hamilton. Tresaca, welcome to Teen Talk Live.
Thank you, Anne.
I am so glad that you were able to join us tonight, and I watch you working with educating people about raising Black boys in today's society, and I just think it's really important. Some people might say that's not different than raising any boys, right? But I believe that you would tell us some of the reasons why you chose to specify or to work in this niche. So welcome, and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you, Anne. I'm glad to be here. And my name is Tresaca Hamilton. I am the CEO of the SID Center. And the mission of the SID Center is to dismantle the school to prison pipeline for Black males. And we do school-based behavioral health programs for intensive behavior intervention. And our clients usually have been diagnosed with behavior disorders such as ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder. And we specialize in Black males because there's a big problem with them being funneled into the school to prison pipeline. So that's why that's our primary focus in working with the specific needs of Black males and Black male mental health.
That is such a great service that you're offering. My first gig was in school-based mental health therapy as well. And so I think it ought to be a rites of passage for everybody. You see so much by being in the schools, being on the front line with teachers, with parents, with administration, with IEPs, with all of that stuff, with
Yeah,
behaviors, right? And
yeah.
so I appreciate the work that you're doing in that area. So
Thank
tell
you.
us some of the things that the SID Center, what does your cases look like? Tell me about your demographics and some of the different challenges that you work to address.
But most of the schools that we work in, they're in low income areas. And the majority of the clients, the parents are single mothers. So they are single mothers raising Black sons. And there's a lot of pressure and just a lot of issues just being in a low income area and trying to raise kids when you're struggling financially. And those kids, what they're dealing with at home, they bring that to school. And a lot of times that contributes to their behaviors at school, the stuff that they're dealing with at home. And if they're struggling outside of school, then it just compounds the issues in the school setting. So our demographics are mainly parents who they're in low income areas and they're usually single mothers raising Black sons. And a lot of times the kids might have behavior issues, but it's not really tied to the IQ level. A lot of these kids are very smart. It's just that they're having issues that are contributing to the behaviors that they're having that are not tied to the academic capabilities.
Well, let me ask you this, Tressica. Is
Okay.
it always issues? I mean, a lot of times we say it's what's going on at home that's manifested in the classroom. Or is it always issues of what's going on at home, or can it sometimes be peer pressure or, lack of skills to deal with the complexities of what our boys are facing with in today's society.
Yeah, sometimes at school, it could be issues at schools if they're dealing with bullying. And a lot of times with Black boys, they have to deal with bias in the classroom, the cultural bias. If they have teachers who are not used to working with Black males. And a lot of times they already have these stereotypes of Black males before they come into the school. And so a lot of times that's projecting onto these young Black boys that they're causing trouble when they're just, being kids. But because they have these stereotypes, they're looked at as being more aggressive or having behavior issues when that's not really the issue. It's just that they're kids. So in the school setting, they're dealing with bias. And they may have to deal with peer pressure because as they grow older, the peer pressure becomes more influential.
Mhm.
So just dealing with peer pressure to be in a certain clique. And if you're in certain neighborhoods, then that means being, involved in gang activity. They might not want to be involved in gang activity, but they
Mm.
have pressure with that. And so just dealing with not having the right coping skills, but they may be angry and don't know how to express their feelings
Right.
appropriately. And they're considered as having behavior issues. So in a school setting, that's what they would deal with.
Right. And I by no means want to imply that there's not issues at home that directly affects how they show up at school, right? Or in the classroom. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying that there is such a complex thing that there are more things that contributes to the behaviors that we're seeing in our Black boys.
Yes.
And um we can't ignore the fact of especially the political climate and
Mhm.
the institutionalized racism and all those different kinds of things that we're seeing manifested. And it's nothing new, but we're seeing the manifestation more,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it definitely impacts our boys.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So when we talk about goodness, I don't even know where to start because it's such a deep and interesting topic to me.
Mhm.
When we talk about single mothers, tell me again, or I think we touched on this a little bit. What are some of the challenges that they're facing with raising boys?
But with the single mothers raising Black boys, they may have the financial struggle of just having one income or not enough income to support the family. But also with the mothers, a lot of Black mothers have pressure on them because they're being told a woman can't raise a man. So they have a lot of societal pressures just dealing with being a single mom trying to raise a Black son. And then just dealing with the issues that their sons are struggling with. And a lot of times, like I said, with the political climate, and especially with the police issues, the police brutality with Black males, that affects kids too. It affects us as adults because we get frustrated and upset. But we know how to express ourselves better. But the kids are dealing with it. They don't know how to express their concerns or their anger or being afraid of what's going on. So that manifests as certain behaviors. So with the single mothers, they're dealing with not just the income, limited income, but also just dealing with raising a son, and then you're dealing with issues with people telling you that you can't raise a man, and also they might not have the father figure present, and that makes a lot of kids are upset because they don't have the father in their lives, and they blame the mother, but the mother is not really to blame for that. So
Mhm.
then just dealing with the trying to be a mother and also dealing with your child's emotional issues and not understanding how to really help your child with their emotions and behaviors.
Right. So it's multifaceted. The
Yes.
the implications, really, and the situations that causes this family structure. Really, it's multifaceted. And so, what when we talk about the pipeline to prison, um, I'll come back to my thought. But when we talk about the pipeline to prison, explain to our audience what does that look like, and how do we see that manifesting in the educational society?
Okay. That looks like a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize that starts as early as maybe 8 years old. So this is something that starts in elementary school, which is why it's important to find, do preventive efforts before then. But it could look like a third grader having issues in school, and they're being suspended constantly. And that child becomes frustrated because they're not receiving the help they need. They don't know how to communicate what they need to help manage their behavior. So they're being suspended. And also, eventually, as the child gets older and becomes more upset with school, they end up dropping out. And if they drop out, it increases the probability of them dropping out or end up being involved in a gang activity or criminal activity because they're upset with school and not in school. And so, eventually, as they go into the juvenile justice system, once they, keep getting suspended or either expelled from school, then that could lead to them, as they grow older, end up going into the adult criminal justice system. So there are a lot of things that are happening when they're young. And like I said, it starts with that child who may not have, they may have a high IQ, and their behavior with them acting up in class is coming from them being bored because they're actually smart, and that the classroom material is boring to them. But the teacher doesn't understand that, and they're being suspended, and then the child becomes frustrated. So that could lead to them being suspended and then eventually expelled, and and they get in trouble outside of school. You have a lot of kids who have dealt with cases where they have they're in robbing crews, or when they because when they're out suspended from school, then that increases the chances of them being involved in criminal activity. And that peer pressure with the other kids who are older, who are not in school or dropped out, then they recruit the younger kids to do criminal activities. So that's what leads to them being involved in the criminal system. And so that's why it's so important to have programs and, even having mentoring programs.
Yes.
To,
And you know what? I was just talking to somebody about this. A lot of times we find a lot of mentoring programs for girls,
yeah,
but not as many for boys,
that's true.
right? And so that creates such an imbalance in the, what is that, the ecological system. It creates
Yeah.
such an imbalance in society as a whole.
Yes.
And I think my hat's always going off to men who really step up and and do more to have a mentorship program for our young Black boys.
Because it's so important. And one of the things with a lot of single mothers, they lack access to resources, so that they don't know about mentoring programs that are available for their sons. But there are a lot of them that are available, but it's just that they don't have access to that knowledge about the resources.
Right. And then there's so many other barriers to, get into the program and keeping them in the programs.
Yes,
Right.
that's
I think
important.
you said something that was really good. You were talking about the pattern of expulsion and suspension. I'm
Yeah.
having kids as young as kindergartners getting suspended or
Yeah.
expelled,
Yes.
and have to, and here then the mother has to switch different to a different school system, right?
Yes.
And so I think it was Monique Morris who worked on the adultification. She worked on the project with Rebecca Epstein, I believe it is, to talk about adultification, which, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, is really seeing our Black and Brown children as older than they are
Yeah.
in comparison to their white counterpart. And just today, I shared in a workshop that I did, she talked about disconnection and the internalization of harm grows stronger in isolation. So
Yeah.
we keep disconnecting our boys for childlike behaviors, right? And
Yeah.
we criminalize those behaviors, then they're developing more internal harm.
Yes.
And it's not promoting unity, and it's not promoting self-love, it's not promoting building stronger communities or connections.
That's true. And that's one of the things that's so important is rebuilding a village, especially in Black communities. We need to rebuild the village where we have support from the community members, because I have a lot of older people I've spoken to who, because they're upset with the juvenile crime. A lot of the crime in their neighborhoods is by juveniles, and these are the ones who have been suspended from school. You know, they're still young Black men, but their solution now is arming themselves against these kids. You know, they're still kids, even though they may be robbing their homes. And honestly, they want to protect their property. But I'm like, well, you know, if you lose a life, take a life, then it's not really worth it. It's more important to put your energy and effort into having mentoring programs, or even doing community, community activities that involve the kids to reduce juvenile crime. Not trying to arm yourself or preparing yourself to have to shoot them if they rob your house.
Right, right. And when we look at the research again around adultification, and these statistics are around girls, but there are some of them that also applies to young Black boys. And the research shows that uh, the perception is that Black girls are less nurturing. They need less protection. They need to be supported less. They need to be comforted less. They are more independent. They know more about adult topics, and these girls are know more about sex. And this is the perception that's imposed upon our Black girls, and very similar perceptions are imposed upon our Black boys. So when I look at the data, it's talking about adultification for Black boys starting as young as 7 years old, where someone might feel threatened by a 7-year-old Black boy because he might look older, and he's perceived to need less nurturing and is more dangerous than his white counterpart.
Yes, and that's the issue with that, especially like when we talk about adultification of the Black boys, and a lot of these kids who, if they have a single mom and they consider the man of the house, and they're made to feel older, but then they bring it to school where, and you're trying to tell them what to do as a child, but they can't relate to that because it's a conflict when you're telling them they're the man of the house, and they have more responsibilities, and they come to school and they're treated as a child. But also you have that bias, the institutionalized racism towards these kids that's affecting them because they're still kids. And and so I have a lot of kindergartners actually who are dealing with that, being suspended. And so the goal is the goal of the 6 center period is not just to keep them in school, but to help them become adults who are successful, but they
Right.
have a career, and everyone has a purpose. So helping them to tap into that, so that and as they grow up, they still have to deal with racism. So learning to navigate that and become successful, regard even though they have to deal with racism. That's something that's a fact of life for Black people, and they're learning to do that and then be successful in spite of that.
Yeah, it's really tricky because
Yes.
I've had clients who I've had to work with to unpack the notion of being the man of the house.
Yes.
And I don't think that a lot of parents really realize the implications of putting that responsibility on a young Black boy.
Yes, that's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure. And navigating school, navigating, okay, I'm a man, I'm the man of the house, and yet there's no control that you really have,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
To execute or any idea of what does it mean to be a man of the house.
Yes,
And so
especially they don't have that father figure as an example of what it means to be a man.
yeah, but even putting that terminology and that burden on a young boy is it causes so much stress
Yes.
and so much I can't even find the right words, but I have to deal with it and unpack and help them to unlearn that and
Yeah.
relearn more skills about what is your rightful place as a child, and and even doing parent education to say what is the rightful place for this young boy as a child in the house.
That's right. And also, helping them because of they also, you have a lot of kids who they're told to man up, and they don't have the skills to, express their emotions, and it turns into anger that causes a lot of conflict at school as well, because they're told, you can't cry as a man, and these are kids. So that they need to learn how to express themselves. If you want to cry, if you're sad, then it's okay to cry. But a lot of these black boys are told to man up. You can't cry because you're called a sissy, or you're ridiculed for that. And so that's something that's damaging to them as well, to their self-esteem and their emotional development.
That is so true. And it's like, what do we need to do to undo these things, and to unlearn these biases, and learn proper, what would you say, emotional intelligence? What do we need to do as a people, really, to address this?
I think more parent education is important to help these, especially with single moms, because like I said, they have a lot of pressure on them as well from society, but just giving them the education to help their sons develop emotional intelligence. And also working with the kids and doing family, because even with family sessions, a lot of kids, they're able to express themselves, and the parents are not aware of what's going on with their child. And so it's important to help them communicate within the family. And also that helps to break generational curses, because you're able to communicate better and you're not repeating the same cycles as the child gets older and has their own family. So it's important to have that parent training and also the family education.
Right. And so I'm just going to pause to recognize our guests. Thank you all for joining the conversation tonight. I'm with my colleague Tresaca, and we are talking about raising single moms, raising Black boys in today's society, and some of the challenges and some of the implications of single moms raising Black boys. So if you are here and you have questions, make sure you drop them in the comment section so that we can ask the expert that is here with us tonight. And Tresaca, this is not to imply that if you have both parents in the household, it's still not challenging raising Black boys in today's society.
It's still challenging.
It's super challenging, right? And we're just shining the spotlight on how extra challenging it is when you are a single mom trying to provide and also raise a Black boy in today's society.
Yes.
There's so many additional challenges attached to being in that family structure, right?
Yes, it is.
So as we talk about this, tell me, if we're looking at single moms who are raising Black boys, what are some of the things that we can say to them? We talked about finding mentoring programs, and we talk about some of the barriers to accessing those programs, but what are some of the things that we can say to help encourage those single moms? Because a lot of times if your child end up, and that's not to say single moms have not done a great job throughout generations, right? But if in a lot of cases, if your child end up in the juvenile justice system, that is the burden and the shame that mom carries can be so heavy.
Yes.
And so what are some of the things that we can share with single moms who might be watching and just might be tired?
Yeah, I understand them being tired. And also because a lot of Black women are told, that you have to be strong. And I think that's one of the things we need to share that label as well as Black women. But it's okay to ask for help, especially if you're a single mom and you're struggling and you're having issues with your son. Don't try to do everything on your own, even though you may be the head of the household. It's okay to ask for help. And also with the mentoring programs, that's good, but you may have male relatives who can step in and help as well as a father figure. So it's okay to ask for help if you need help. And also understand with your child that every behavior is communication. So if you're having problems with your child's behavior, then there's a reason why they're acting a certain way. So it's important to get to the root cause of that behavior, because a lot of times if you're a single mom and you're working a lot, your child may not understand that you're not home with them or able to spend time with them because you're trying to work and provide for them, and that's your way of showing that you love them, because you're sacrificing your
I think I lost you. Can you hear me? I think I lost your audio. Um, I'm not sure what happened, but I can't.
Okay, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you
Okay,
before.
okay,
Were you able to
you're
hear
back.
me?
You're back. Yes.
Okay.
So we were talking about them, moms having to work extra, and not have the privilege of spending as much time with their child as they would desire.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and continue.
Okay. So yeah, so you may, you're doing it because you love your child, but your child may look at it as you don't love them because you're not spending time with them. So it's important to have that communication and let them know that you may not be able to attend every game or be involved as much because you're working to provide for them. But also have a day where you have family time. Have a set day where you can spend time with your child, and that's family time, where your child is able to communicate with you to let you know what's going on with them, and they feel safe telling you how they feel without fear of you, getting upset with them. So that's important. And also, if you need help from other male relatives, to step in for discipline, ask for help. And also get involved in community programs if they're available in your community. You can call United Ways 211 to see what programs are available in your area. But it's important to have support, build a support network. And with school, it's important to communicate with your child's teachers. A lot of teachers are willing to give you their email address. So if your child is having problems in school, it's important to have the teachers on your team and understanding what resources are available in the school system to help your child succeed academically. So if you're not able to go up to the school because you have to work, then get their email address so that you could communicate with them and understand what's going on with your child before it gets worse. Because you don't want it to escalate to where the only time you hear from them is when your child is about to be suspended. We need to
Right.
work on prevention efforts. And also, even if you have friends who are single, have that support network of other women who are single mothers. That's important so you can help each other, because it's very important to have support. Like I said, don't try to do everything on your own or feed into that stereotype of being a strong Black woman. So have a support network of other women who are single mothers raising Black sons, and also the mentoring programs. And like I said, it's important to keep in touch with your child's school and to know what's going on with your child on a regular basis. And like I said, having that set family time is
Yes.
important, and understanding that our behavior is communication. And if you need help with family therapy, then they get that support as well. If you need to have an expert, a professional to help you, then seek out that assistance as well.
I think those are really key interventions or key strategies to share with our moms. And Sorabel says, I have a friend who mentors my son. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Reach out to family members, reach out to friends to help fill in the gap,
Yes,
uh, because that's so important.
yes, it
And
is.
I believe that women have raised strong, productive Black men down through the years, and I believe that we can continue to. And I also believe that there are some things that, as a woman, I can't teach. That's
Yes,
just my belief, and everybody might not agree with that. But I believe that there is a role for another to see that male figure in their life.
that's important.
I think it's important. And we talked a little bit about, as a single Black mom, shouldering that, the notion that we have to be strong.
Yes,
And strong means that in I mean, the narrative around strong is that you don't necessarily need help. You got to do it yourself. You can only depend if you want it done right. You got to do it yourself. You can only depend on you because other people are going to let you down, and you just keep going and give all that you can, and then find some more to give. Right. And I think we have to, as a community, redefine that, and we have to change the narrative around strong. What does that mean? A few weeks ago, a girlfriend and I, we looked at the strong as acronyms, and we came up with a couple of things. And we said S is for spiritual, and this is redefining the strong Black woman, spiritual, and she practices self-care. T is for trustworthy, and she teaches others how to treat her. R is for resilient. She sets and respects her own boundaries. O is for ownness of space, power, and her stuff. N is for non-judgmental. And G is for generous, gracious, and filled with gratitude.
I like that.
And that's what, we said, what, we need to redefine, we need to write a new narrative around what it means to be a strong Black woman.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Self-care is so important too. I wrote a guide called the Self-Care Guide for Single Moms Raising Black Sons, because that's so important. A lot of women, they don't practice self-care, and that's, you need to take care of yourself first. A lot of women are serving from empty cups, and we need to learn how to fill our cups to better serve our families. So the self-care is very important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Tresaca, I am glad that you took the time to come out and talk about this topic with us. And we're going to be sharing it around. And if people have questions or comments, they can feel free to drop them in this comment section. But I want you to tell our audience, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me at the SID Center. It's the SIDcenter.com, and SID is spelled SID. And I also have the free self-care guide for single moms raising Black sons, as well as a parenting with purpose course to help your child discover their purpose and reach their full potential.
Awesome. And where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and that's also the SID Center. So at the SID Center, it's the social media handles.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad you were able to join me for this conversation tonight on single moms raising Black boys. Again, that is not a situation that, it's destined to doom or gloom, because again, we have some amazing examples in society of men who were raised by single mom, and they are great examples of representing and being respectful in today's society. What we're saying is we're just shining the light on it to say that it presents an added stress and challenge in parenting.
Yes, it does. And thank you for having me. I enjoyed speaking on this topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us. And for those of you who are catching us on the replay, please remember to share this out and tell somebody else about it. And join us on Monday nights for another conversation on Teen Talk Live. Usually we're talking about girls, but today, by special request, we stepped out and we are talking about Black moms raising single moms raising Black boys. And so this is a new area just to step out on today to explore with Tresaca Hamilton. And thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to share this video out and join us on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.